And peers, like behind the bushes and stuff like that, and he sees, a road, in the middle of the forest, and two wagons, and they approach each other, and they stop, and there's two guys around them, and like they're dressed like real simple, like just kind of, simple single fabrics kind of stuff, just basic fare, like stuff you see in Rome, and they talk to each other, they say, what up and whatever, but they were speaking in this other language, completely, different language, and but Jim is like, why did that spell work? So that's Prologue, chapter 1. Jim, Matt, and Josh, they're in Jim's room, and they're talking about it. Like, all right, man, you ready to go? You ready, man? You really ready to do this? And they're just like, dude, it ain't gonna work, man. It ain't gonna work because all we do is write letters to our parents saying we're going, and it's just not gonna work. It's like even if we do go and we come back alive, what's gonna happen, man? Like parents are gonna freak, man. And it's like, and they're gonna wonder, and like, don't worry about it, man. We'll play legit. We'll play like, yeah, that's what we really did. Okay, we really went camping. It's like, okay, it's like, all right, man, all right, let's go do it. And it's like, look, man, come on. This is Jim, right? Jim saying like, come on, man. We are really going camping. It's just we're not saying exactly where, but we're just kind of making it up, and they don't really need to know that stuff. So, and we'll be fine. Look, we got knives. We've been practicing and stuff. We got food. We got money. We got clothes. Like we're dressed. We got the babel nuts. So we can speak their language, any language. We're fine, man, and we can do this. Okay, we can do this. We can do this. And Matt's there, and he's like, all right, man. This is really crazy. We better not die, man. I'll do it. And Josh is like, I really don't think we can do this. Josh is like just freaking out. He's like, oh, all right, let's go. And so Jim, he's wearing like this kind of like leather boots. Just kind of like they're kind of crude. They're crudely handmade. And he's got some pants, fabric pants, and then he's got some sort of shirt. Because by this point it's November, so it's getting chilly. These guys are going on break. They got a 4-week break, right? But they're going on a break for 4 weeks, and it's getting a little chilly on the other world. In fact, it's even it's a different latitude, so it's kind of starting to snow, or it's a higher latitude, so it's kind of starting to snow in the higher mountains, and stuff like that. And they're going to go, and so they got jackets and stuff like that. It's all crudely handmade, and it's stuff from this other world. So they go, and they, Jim touches the paper, the portal. His buddies touch his shoulder. Jim says, "Abu Vadi Kuranda." Transfers over to this other world. They're all in the cave, and they start walking. They're just talking about whatever, and one of the things they talk about, like, all right, so, dude, why did, okay, so tell me again why this babel nut works. It's like, well, look, man, it's a spell that's in the nut. Like some wizard, like honest to God wizard, casted a spell on some nuts, and it enchanted them with this spell that was it allows you to understand languages, so you can understand what people say to you. And it's, but it basically casts a spell on your brain. And so when something expresses itself to you, really what you're doing is your brain is reading the impressions of the other brain. And, in a sense, and it really works if there's, if both people have the same spell, they can interact with each other. But otherwise, you understand what people say to you. So when we walked, when these guys walked in, there was a guard at the gate, and they were just kind of freaking out, and the guy was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" In this other language, but they had no idea what the guy said, and they're just like, "Well, hey man, we sorry, we don't understand. Can we just walk on in?" And the guy keeps talking to him, and I'm like, "Well, look, he's kind of like gesturing with his spear a little bit too, because he's a soldier, so he's got a spear, and he's like, what you guys doing, man? Like you go." Are you going in or what? Do you guys need something? Where are you coming from? Because, the soldier is also kind of like a police officer at this time. And he's like, what are you guys doing? I'm just curious. But he wants to also make sure that these guys aren't bandits or thieves, ruffians, or like just even spies, even. So, and he doesn't recognize them as part of it too. But the kids are freaking out because this guy keeps saying stuff, so they just don't understand it. They're trying to, gesture like, well, hey man, so we just wanted to go inside and look inside the city, or inside the town, this little village. It's like a little tiny dinky ass village, right? It's got log walls that are upright, so it's just that simple, and there's a little walkway on it, but it's barely like if you stand next to it, you can reach up and grab the top of it, kind of thing. Or you have to kind of jump. It's just a little bit higher than that. So like maybe 8 feet, whatever, or not 8 feet, but 10 feet. 10 feet high. But that's it. And all these little houses in there, and they're like thatch and wattle houses, which is like just real like twigs, pretty much. Twigs and mud, kind of stuff. And it's pretty dirty stuff. It's just pretty dusty little place. It's just like where a lot of people live, and they live together, and they live somewhat clean, but otherwise it's pretty damn dirty, and pretty damn poor, third world, it's just really bad. And there was like a couple shops in the center of town, and what this guard did was he told his little kid, hey, because he saw a little kid walking by, hey, take these guys and take them to the shop. And the kid's like, oh, come on, man, I got to. He's like, hey, man, do it, all right? Here. And he tosses him a coin. The kid's like, all right. It's like, come on, you guys. And, the boys, they didn't understand. Because the guard's, gesturing towards this little boy. And, Jim, Josh, and Matt, they're like, what? What about the little kid? What do you mean about the little kid? We have never seen that little kid. We're not gonna do him harm. What? Like, are you placing us under arrest? Or whatever. Okay, you want us to go with this little kid? All right. We're following the little kid. This little kid's getting a little tantrum. They're like, come on, guys, why don't you follow me? So he leads them on. And they walk in into the village, and we're walking down. And people are just kind of like looking at him a little bit, but always, I don't care. And when one of Jim starts trying to wander off, the kid's like, hey, no, come here, and Jim's like, follow you, okay, it's like, all right, so I'm being led, I'm being corralled by his little kid, and they go in the center of town, they walk in, and Jim is like, dude, are we in trouble? What's going on? And Matt's like, man, we better not be, this is not the way to start this, thing, and Josh's like, they're freaking out. But they walk into this place. It's got, looks like any other buildings, but just like looks a little bit nicer. It's got more, timbered wood, wood and stuff. And walk in this door, and there's like just rows of stuff, and it's all merchandise from the looks of it, because it's all arranged. There's food, and there's just items, that you can use. And it's like, oh, it's a trade shop. All right, yeah, cool. Jim is saying. And, well, or are we? And there's this guy standing there, and the guy's just like looking at him grumpy, and his kid says something to him, and the guy's like, well, all right, what you gonna give me? And the kid's like, oh man, are you serious? The little kid's like upset, like, wait, I gotta pay you for this? Oh, come on, man, please, don't say I gotta pay you. These are strangers, they don't got the fucking nut, dude. Can you like hook them up? Come on. And the guy's like, man, like, for free? And the guy's like, the kid's like, hey man, look, check it out. They'll pay you something, all right? As soon as they get the nut, that's what it is. They're probably just fucking dumb. They don't know about the nut. Give them the fucking nut, because then guess what? They're gonna have to trade you, right? Just tell them. They'll understand. And the guy's like, all right. So give here, guys, come here. And Jim's like, all right, what, man? What do you want? Walks over. And he's like, okay, yeah, how's it going, buddy? The guy's, gesturing, and he's like, come on, And Jim's like, well, what do you want, man? What do you want? All right, look, you want me to take this nut? All right.